Hi, my name's Helen and I'm one of the trainers at Hayter Institute. I am going to take you through your induction for the new course that's starting for the community services, which is workplace health and safety. But first we'll do an introduction to your learning. So just let me share my screen. Okay. All right. So welcome to Hayter Institute. I am Helen and I teach mental health and community services here. So before we begin, let us do just a welcome to country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Hayter Institute of Education acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of this nation and the traditional custodians of the land on which we work, live and study. We express our gratitude for the sharing of this land, our sorrow for the personal, spiritual and cultural costs of that sharing, and hope that we may move forward together in harmony and in the spirit of healing. We pay our respects to First Nations people and acknowledge elders for past, present and emerging. So welcome to Hayter. This is what it looks like when you come into a classroom. So this is what we call in-class housekeeping. So for that housekeeping, we talk about, we have our cameras on and we leave our microphones off. And that is while your trainer is presenting. If you want to ask a question, there is a hand emoji to use in the emoticons, and that will let me know that you want to ask a question. We have break times at 7 and 8 p.m. for approximately 10 minutes each. And we also have no smoking or vaping on screen. We don't do it, so we expect the same from you. So it's about reciprocal respect. So part of the work here that we do, it's about being mindful of our communications, and we speak with respect, we speak with kindness, and we value the opinion of all others. And we're all learners in this space together. Some of the content may trigger some warnings, feelings in you, and that it's crucial that you get access to support. So please reach out for your supports, and that can be a friend, a family member, talk to them on the phone or in person, or you can call Lifeline on 131114. Always be kind to yourself. We always ask everybody to make sure you take some time out each week for yourself, rejuvenate, get your brain fresh again. So let's have a look at what assessments are. So assessments, there are 3 different types of assessments. We have quizzes, we have case studies, and we have role plays. I'm sorry, there's a 4th one. We often have research projects as well, so like a report. And some role plays need to be completed live in front of an assessor. So along with your trainer and other learners, you might form a group to be able to do a certain role plays, but please let your trainer know. Now, you'll notice that that will be on your assessments when you open up your task, and it's usually written in red saying that this must be done live with an assessor. Now, if one of your courses has a placement component, when we're about 60% through, the course, we can start looking at placement for you. And if you work in a suitable environment that matches the placement requirements, then you might be able to complete it there. Just please let your trainer know. So Assessments. What happens if you can't get it in time? So you can ask your trainer for an extension of time. And also, if there's any extenuating circumstances that a life event has happened and you can't make it to class, or which is voluntary as well, it's not compulsory. You just let your trainer know that you're having a life event and that you might need some more time. So with your marking of assessments, we aim to try and get it done within 48 hours. Sometimes that can be a little bit longer depending on trainer availability and marking. And you will also get a feedback response on your assessment to guide you. And if there's anything marked wrong, there's feedback to guide you to how to respond correctly to, and also some links if you need some extra support. Don't forget, if you're writing a report or using the words of another author, please don't forget to reference that. Now, if you don't know how to reference, reach out to your trainer. But also too, there's certain, there's easier ways to do referencing if you don't know APA 6 or Oxford. We're quite happy, but you reach out to your trainer and ask them what they prefer. So if you need any help with your assessments or your role plays, you can actually book a trainer session in with trainers that we have right across the week available, and that's called a Calendly appointment. And I have the address here, and it'll also be in your learner resource section. So with a rolling intake with HADA, it gives you flexibility to start at the beginning of the units. So when we start a new unit at HADA, every one of the learners is new to that unit. They might have been here for a little while doing other units before you, but in the process, when we all start at the beginning of a unit, we're all new to that unit. But the system's flexible and allows learners to enter or exit programs based on credit transfers and RPLs, and it also caters for any unforeseen circumstances that might happen in your family or to yourself, and you might have to defer your studies. Please just reach out to your trainer, or you can email lso@hadainstitute.edu.au and ask for a deferral for the amount of time that you need. Usually it's around 2 to 3 months. So connecting with your trainer, it's really important to connect with your trainer and also be able to email and ask questions. So as I'm your trainer, my email is helen@hadainstitute.edu.au, and you can ask me questions. And we also, if there's any glitches getting into class tonight, or if there's any problems with your Accelerate Learner portal, please reach out to lso@hadainstitute.edu.au. So we have supports here. We're a safe learning environment, but also if any of the work is causing any concerns for you, make sure you reach out and learn how to regulate your emotions and seek support. It's crucial here because as part of the community services workers, we have to know how to regulate our emotions and seek support when we do need it. There's also extra information in your learner hand guide. So don't forget, it's normal to be overwhelmed and a little bit anxious. And often people say the role plays are the things that gives them stress. And once they've done one, they go, oh, not so hard. So look, we're here to support you, and we're here for your learning journey all the way. So enjoy your learning and welcome to HADA. So welcome everybody to Workplace health and safety time. Yay. Sally, we might need your skills in this. You might have had a fair bit to do where you work with workplace health and safety sometimes. All right, so we're going to look at the rights and responsibilities, policies and procedures, personal safety, individual support, and emergency procedures. Before we begin, let's do acknowledgement of country. So, in the spirit of reconciliation, Hayter Institute of Education acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of this nation and the traditional custodians of the land on which we work, live, and study. We express our gratitude for the sharing of this land, our sorrow for the personal, spiritual, and cultural costs of that sharing, and hope that we may move forward together in harmony and the spirit of healing. We pay our respects to all First Nations people and acknowledge elders past, present, and emerging. Oh, what's going on? Right. Welcome to you, our new banner that we have. And I've just got some new banners up across the bottom here for inclusion. And just a little remember that we're respectful language and we leave our biases aside as our duty of care. So we're looking at field-based work here. So trying to operate some of the language we're using here, make sure that it's geared towards our practice in the community. So break times at 7 and 8, no smoking or vaping on screen. Use your hand emoji to ask a question, please. Keep your mics off whilst we're presenting, and be kind to yourself during the week. Don't forget to rest up and rejuvenate that brain. All right, workplace health and safety and the rights and responsibilities of workers in Australia to carry out their work within a safe environment, and to the responsibilities of employers to provide and maintain safe work environment. What examples can you identify that relates to a safe work environment? How would you say your environment at work is safe? Hamish?
Yeah. No risk of violence in the workplace. In kitchens, I worked in for 17 years. That's a big thing, making sure, especially with the type of equipment people are using, you know? Yeah.
All that equipment and the temperatures and, you know, all
And the
those risky
hot-tempered
things.
people spending 18 hours a day together as well. Yeah.
And we do forget how long chefs cook for. We don't think about, like, even the bakeries, how early they start.
Yeah. They start at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., those guys. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, baking through. But yes, those risks. What other examples can you identify that relates to a safe work environment? For me, it's entries and exits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, prior tripping hazards, well-lit areas, like clearly signed, I can't even think of it, but exits to, if there's an emergency, like a fire or something, the signs need to be well lit and clear and not obstructed.
Yeah. The other important thing for me is a good coffee machine. Makes a very healthy work environment. Actually, a very clean kitchen helps with the work environment as well, because otherwise there is hazards with, you know, water on the floor or something dropped over and something slippery. Hamish?
I just thought with what I'm doing now, I like having a few workers really helps, especially with like we work with people that are quite strong, to be honest. And if it was one person by themselves, it's a bit risky. So it's good to have several workers looking after people who kind of like might run off or get upset, get a little bit like have a bit of a tantrum and have reactions in that. And it's good having several people and different kinds of people to make sure that you can like fix those situations. Because yeah, we've had stuff like that happen recently where it did really help to have two people instead of one, for sure.
Yes, yes, safety in numbers, and especially if you're working in an area with
Was
mental health
a schizophrenic
disabilities and
person.
AOD.
Yeah, it was schizophrenia and freaking out. So
Yeah, no, never should be on your own in those circumstances. Okay. So the legislations around workplace health and safety are crucial to organisations right across Australia. Let me play that for you. I'm just going to press pause. So every state might have workplace health and safety different rules as well. But generally there's the national one, and New South Wales was leading that. So do go back and have a look at that video. It was a lot of information he was flying out in a very short time. But see if you can go and open up that document, because it'll be worthwhile for your assessments as well. Right, now let me just get my screen back up again. Right, so the Workplace Health and Safety Act 2011, which he was just talking about. It looks at the regulations and approved codes of practice, which relates to our work in the industry. And that forms a safeguard, like a framework around our work and the workplace itself. And you can apply it to all different various size organizations and different industries as well. And the basis of this is to minimize and eliminate risk to people's health and safety by protecting the worker and anybody else that actually visits the service. So the Workplace Health and Safety Act 2011, which will be in your assessment questions, establishes work and health safety duties. So the organisation has a duty, the worker has a duty, and the people visiting the centre, which often they will class as clients in legislations like this, they all have a duty to in that work environment. So often the organisation has a duty to train people, make sure people have the correct procedures for crisis management, up-to-date information, safe area. As the worker, we ensure the safety of the participant in the service, as well as we are adhering to the legislation that the organisation brings down, as well as contributing to identifying risks and also updating our skills in workplace health and safety, which is also a part of the organisation's role. The participant's role is to act safely in the workplace and treat the worker with respect, but also act safely as well. So they have a responsibility as well. But it enables, when you have this in place, it enables a compliance within the workforce, and which is actually a national law as well. And it's run through, like we heard, through a regulator. and often there'll be workplace health and safety spot checks with assessors coming out to workplaces and not notify them. They can just turn up at any time, and they can do an inspection of the site. And they also can check that you are actually following the codes of practice for that regulation in that workforce as well. Big fines if you're not, very big fines. Hamish, you probably would have had something to do with workplace health and safety in being in a kitchen with that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was completely my responsibility. I was a head chef from when I was 21. So even when I was 21, I was responsible with 30-year-olds. So when you're basically the health and safety supervisor when you're the head chef. So
Right.
everything is your responsibility, from the signs on the wall to the standards that are kept to the rules to when things go wrong and the processes that come after that, and work cover stuff. And yeah, it's definitely a lot of what you get involved in hospitality. Absolutely,
A
because it's
lot of
so
other
much to do with
duties.
like touching people's food and mouth, and as I said, the equipment and stuff like that. So it's a dangerous place to be in because there's hot stuff, so yeah.
Certainly a lot of other duties that go along with that, isn't there?
It's out of control. That's why I am now doing this for a job. I am so over it. I did 18 years and I am done.
Right. So as Hamish was just talking about those responsibilities, under the workplace health safety legislation, as an employee, we have to make sure that we adhere to the workplace health and safety policies and procedures, and we work in a way that protects ourselves, our colleagues, and any people accessing the service from harm, and we contribute to creating and maintaining a safe workplace. That's also one of your questions in your tasks. Think about, though, in the workforce, wherever you are, you have a duty to maintain any tripping hazards, make sure they're notified, cords hanging, things like that, that can cause a problem in the workplace. Right, so the employer responsibilities. As we've just learnt in that recording, the PCBU, the person conducting a business or undertaking, they have certain responsibilities, and they also have rights under that legislation as well. So they're responsible for the training and the maintaining of a safe work environment right across the board. Like Hamish was saying, he was a part of that role that had to ensure that work environment was safe, reporting, regulating, sign management, notifications. So that's their role. That the employee's role is about following those organizational policies and procedures and working in a way that protects themselves, because you're trying to eliminate any harm. You don't want to contribute to that. So the Community Door, Australian Community Workers Association, also outlines employers' responsibilities as their job to ensure work health and safety of each of their workers and other persons of the public, so that they are not to be affected by the conducting of a business. So that business cannot harm anybody in that workplace in any way. So we have to be, if you're an employer, providing information, instructions, training, supervision, especially in mental health areas and community service work, supervision, debriefing, and instructions on, you could be running a group. You've got to do a risk assessment before you can run a group. You have to access the hall or room that you're going to be working in. You have to ensure everything's safe. If there's any hazards, you have to report them earlier. You might be able to use that room if you identify too many hazards. I know in one time when we took a young group of 15 teenagers to a community centre to do some activities, when we got into the big main hall, which we were told had been workplace health and safety checked, there was cords hanging from the wall. There was trip hazards on the floor where the lino had come up and started peeling up. The taps didn't work in the kitchen. So we actually ended up having to take everybody outside because the risk was too high in monitoring and keeping them safe in one place. Hamish?
Sorry to ask again. I'm just wondering, like, I've seen so many places that clearly don't follow it. And I just, how do they get away with it? Like, even to the point, not to bring up anything too dark, but when I was 21, a chef in Newtown died because the water sink blocked and the water filled up about this high in the kitchen, and then it hit an electrical cord and just electrocuted him.
Oh gosh.
So it's like, why was that even able to exist in the first place? And I've seen many many businesses that just seem to get away with it. Are they paying people? Do you think that there's corruption there, or what's going on with that? Because it happens rampantly around.
It could be some of those things, but first of all, why isn't the business owner making sure the operation of the business is running better? That's their responsibility for a start.
I agree.
There are random checks with workplace health and safety. They're better now than they used to be. They never had that many people on the ground to go out, but it was when a complaint process had been put through, then someone would come out. So then in that case, do we need more people making the complaint process? So it's about, if you don't speak up, it's not going to happen. Some organizations, their managers, their business owners are not clearly demonstrating safe practices.
Mandatory though, don't you think? Like
it is mandatory.
Government,
it's right
but
across
like
the law.
yearly or 6-month government comes in, not some guy that you can, manipulate, and then like it's really, really official. Because like I've literally worked in kitchens where like you've got several machines hanging off a socket board,
Yeah.
and then off the wall, stuck to the wall with Gorilla Glue. And that's what you have to work with, and that's the boss is like, that's just how it is, That's kind of crazy, right? And
it puts the worker in such danger because they're in
so
need of
much
the money.
to get electrocuted and a lot of other things. But like, I just don't understand why is there not like any protection, because so many people have died, so many people have been hurt. Like, why is you're saying it is government, but it just doesn't happen, right? Basically.
All I know is that they have inspectors that come out, inspect
Yeah,
the
and
businesses.
the health inspectors,
but how often that happens, I don't know. How do some businesses get away with it? How do they get around to every business?
It's not often at all.
Huge, but a huge.
Because they know that once they eat, if they inspect in a restaurant, they can't eat in it anymore. So then you get a bunch of people who don't want to do their job. But I've worked in places that haven't had inspectors come in for like 4 years, and then you like cleaning up a total nightmare. But anyway,
crazy. Sally?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it also comes down to the employees not speaking up. Like I know with Bunnings, we have safety improvement teams in every single store, and every 6 months we get audited by our internal people. But even in store, we have team members who'll spot something, but they're too scared to say something. And it's like, why are you scared? Like, you're not going to lose your job because you just found a problem.
We're not, though.
And it
We're
comes
not.
down to that. Like, we don't have enough people in our services to inspect every business all the time, but
Yeah.
the people should be not afraid to lose their job for speaking up.
I've spoken up so many times and just been ignored, pushed aside. It's okay, deal with it for now. Had screaming matches with my bosses about how unsafe it is.
Absolutely.
You name it. I've left jobs because of it, everything like that. Like we don't have the rights that you guys do in hospitality, and like Bunnings is an amazing organization. Like the way
no, absolutely. But in every organization, I think, if there is a safety issue, everyone should have the right to be able to stand up and not feel
they do,
fearful.
that's the thing, but our owners just go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then people leave and then nothing gets fixed because the people who noticed it have left. And it's a sad world that we live in, that things don't get fixed because we're too scared to speak up.
Yeah.
Yep. Happens across the board. They want us to have the responsibility to speak up.
Yeah.
But it needs to be a safer environment. Yes, true. True, Hamish. Yeah. Tony?
Everyone responding to Amy, and I agree with Sally. But I have done this, okay, as a coach. Everyone, every single person has a responsibility. If you're a worker, you've got a duty of care. Okay?
That's right. Yep.
For you and for your followers. And the best way to do it is not to go over to anyone and complain. The best way to do it is to add an email, CC it to your supervisor, and at the same time to your state's legalization. Okay? So it's all in paper. If you do that, you will not be sacked. Okay? But if you just complain about without knowing about, because if you have a look at this, one of the things they tell you is keep it all in hiding so we can track it. So if you've got a complaint, don't talk about it. Go home, and I've told this to a 16-year-old, go home, write an email, complain about whatever you want, me if you want, CC it to everyone that you mention in there, and then CC it to your state's Work Safety Commission.
Yep.
I go to the ombudsman, mate. Like I go right up. I go and I don't muck around. Like,
Well, jumping, I know you're young, Hamish, but
I'm 33, mate.
Yeah, that's young. Taking shortcuts isn't always the best way to go around things.
Your Safe Work Australia is there to support you. There's the Workplace Health and Safety Ombudsman if you're concerned about safety in the workplace.
Yeah, but
there
if you
are avenues for you to go to.
But if you go to the ombudsman, the first question they're going to ask you, have you been in touch with your Safety Commission board?
That's
and
right.
you say no, so they're going to say go away.
Yeah, they'll at least give you the processes to follow, what they expect you to do. So every state, territory has a workplace health, safety and legislation, and they also have the authorities in each state. So in 2012, a new model of workplace health and safety came across Australia, which had 8 different sets of laws. So there was more consistency right across Australia. And the laws were intended that all states and territories would be replaced by laws on a national model of workplace health and safety to try and harmonise that legislation right across the country. But we're still having trouble with looking at our, even for instance, the building industry. How many defective buildings that have been and companies that have crashed because of defective building, safety issues that have harmed people as well. So it's still happening out there. So how are they supposed to manage that and be able to be on the ground and check every business? Big
Well, a
job.
good example was when Masters was on board in Australia. So a lot of their products sold were not Australian compliant. But yet they managed to get away with it for 4 years to sell it until all of a sudden houses started to catch on fire because their wiring wasn't compliant. So yeah, they get away with it all the time.
Yep. Seems to be more, but more has happened in the last 3 years than it has happened in the last 15 years around building regulations, identification, and they've actually said that's because workers are speaking up, because they've been told to do shortcuts. And they're taking pictures of the shortcuts that they've been told to do, because they know that they can lose their own license because they could be subcontractors to people. So they don't want to lose their own license for working. So somewhere along the line in one industry, it's happening. Oh yeah, there has too. I know what you're talking about, Hamish. All right. So from your learner guide, when providing input. So if you were working with somebody from the disability sector, what considerations would you have if you were taking that person, A, out in the car, and B, working in the home? We're going to do this as an activity. What workplace health and safety consideration do you need taking a client out in the car and working in their home with them? So let me just stop share there. Glad that wasn't recorded. I've been in trouble. All righty. Okay, so room 1, Carlson, Kylie, Zoe.
Yeah.
What did you
we discuss?
identify?
So should I go? I don't know. Zoe, Kylie, should I go? I've got them in front of me.
You can talk if you want.
Shall I? Shall I give that a go? Right. Working in a vehicle. We'd mentioned depending on the needs, having the correct vehicle, having the correct equipment, the handling equipment, and training associated with that, be it someone in a wheelchair or with complex needs to help them into the vehicle. Any modifications on the vehicle, considerations around coexisting issues that the individual may have. We said as an example, maybe a seizure. Where would you want the individual sitting next to you, or would it be in the back seat, or where would those considerations be in appropriate insurance to cover you to do that? So that's that vehicle. And then at home, it's similar. So general hazards that you would find in a property. And I suppose in particular, if you're going into someone's own property, they might have challenges doing the maintenance, which you would naturally see elsewhere. So it's not quite as easy for them to fix things up. And maybe also as well, financially, it might not be so easy for them to be able to get things done as speedily as they'd want to. Consideration around multi-support workers at the same time being in a property. What are they doing? What's their needs? And making sure that things are placed in sensible areas such as walkers or wheelchairs, etc. They can restrict access to certain things. Again, insurance, if there's coexisting disabilities, the type of disability, making sure that your company or you have appropriate cover for health and safety. Personal cover as well, in case you have your own accident and you cause something to their belongings, I imagine. Again, the ability to use manual handling equipment and having appropriate training on that equipment. And obviously knowing the policies around reporting of issues you might encounter.
Yes. Wow. You guys did some great work.
Thank you very much. It was all the sewing, Kylie. I just was typing.
Great work. Hi, Daisy. Welcome. We're doing workplace health and safety. We're just identifying issues in if we took clients out in a car as well as in a home environment. What workplace health and safety issues should we be aware of?
Okay, thank you.
So we just come back from breakout room. Alrighty. One thing with the, oh no, I'll wait and see if somebody else identifies it first. Room 2, Caitlin, Sally, and Tony.
Sally,
I can see Tony pointing and I'm like, who are you pointing at? Do you want to go, Caitlin? You can
No, I
own
was going to say Tony should go because he did all the talking. So
no.
basically we just spoke about when it comes to transporting, making sure you've got access. So if you are in a car and you have someone who is in a chair, that you can get them out of the chair, so out of the vehicle properly and safely. And if there's ramps or doorways you need to be aware of, suitable parking, suitable space for maneuvering a chair around, or someone who's with a walker. Insurance to transport if you're using your own vehicle.
Yes.
And inside the home, pretty much everything that the other group have said as well. But also, if, for instance, you have a blind client, making sure that, you know, the house is not too cluttered, furniture is, you know, fairly secured down, making sure you've got your toilet and bathroom handles, etc.
Yep, definitely. Yes, and that having your own personal insurances, let alone that you're working with an organization that will have insurances, but using your own car, certainly got to make sure the registration and the repairs on the car are up to date as well.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Abby Hamish.
So we had to complete a risk assessment before taking them out in your car.
Yes.
And to consider their medical history, any mental and behavioural issues. And Hamish was saying for his new job, something they have to consider, like if they go on a ferry, they know that they couldn't take some of their clients on the ferry because it wouldn't be safe.
Yeah.
So consider those kind of things individually. If they need assistance, like to get into the car as well, and what kind of transport they need, like if they're in a wheelchair, if that was accessible for them.
Yep.
And if you're going into their home as well, your own safety, so something like a duress button or someone on speed dial on your phone ready to call straight away if something happens.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yep. Very
And
good.
that's as far as we got.
I reckon there are like many of those things that apply to taking someone out definitely apply to going to someone's home as well. So the risk assessment, medical history, knowing their behavior, knowing, you know, what kind of assistance they need, whether it's like wheelchair or what kind of medication. I think that applies there too, in just the same way.
Yeah, definitely. One thing you all missed: consent.
I did say you have to ask. I did say that. But
You had a chance to talk, Tony.
Yeah,
You had a chance, brother.
Huh? Say?
You You got there halfway, Tony.
Yeah. And as far as the risk assessment, which Evelyn is mentioning, if you go to someone's house, or if you're taking someone in your car, the risk assessment should have been done weeks ago.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. Look,
Okay.
that
If you're
would all
doing the
be
risk
planned.
assessment, then you're not ready for this job.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And usually these events are planned, but often with support working, especially, plans might change at the last minute. And different workers will come in to do the job, and where they're going might have changed as well. So, but that all has to be done before, and that could be done on the run whilst you're organising the event that morning, as long as that paperwork's been put in and seen by a supervisor. That's why electronic work, they'll often give you a tablet or a phone to work off as well, so you can do that type of paperwork, because you have to report an incident straight away within a certain amount of time as well. So those reporting incidences usually have to be done within 12 to 24 hours. They prefer 12, but a lot of people don't do it within that time frame. So if you're being given a tablet to work off or a phone for that, which is great to be able to do, having those systems on your phone. But yes, the consent around manoeuvring or entering a home is crucial to have as well. Alrighty, 7 o'clock, here we are already. Right, 10-minute break, back at 7:15, so 12 minutes. Welcome, Samantha. Right, so Daisy, we'll just catch you up and Samantha on what we've been through tonight. So quickly, we talked about the Workplace Health and Safety Act and what it covers and what the responsibilities are of the workers, the organisation, and the people who visit the service. We talked about those responsibilities for each area and the policies related to it, and about the employers' workers, that they must cover all of these things for the workers' safety. Then we talked about the different state authorities that are in place. And then we were talking about, we're just getting into duty of care and employers' responsibilities.
Perfect, thank you. And I can access the what you call it, the PowerPoint on the resources page.
Yes, you should
Awesome.
be able to get that, and the recording will come out tomorrow.
Awesome, thank you so much.
So just as an update on processes at HADA as well. So we're looking at how we often used to say that we would park a role play down the line, come back for it. What they're looking at now is wanting people to finish off every task, one after the other, before going on to the next module. Because we've got too many bits and pieces all over the place. And it was something that was done historically, and we're now sort of trying to catch up for everybody on those. So if you can stay in the one subject area, get all those green lines, ticks, then move on. The next thing that they're looking at doing, which I think it started last week, they're only releasing the subject for the next week on the Friday before. Every Friday, they'll be releasing the subject for during the week, for the following week. Not before, unless you've got an agreement where you're working way ahead and having early releases. But that's an email to LSO if that's what you're going to have in place, right? To work, to shorten the time. And then they're looking at the learning support sessions coming down to 1 a month. Not sure where that's going to work in, how that works, but that wouldn't take in role plays and things like that as well. So it's a bit of a change coming through, but we want the ethos of you're finishing completely an assessment. So task 1 in week 1, task 2 in week 2, task 3 in week 3. Then you've got still 4 weeks to complete. We've got to get better at our end, helping organise the role plays that need an assessor. We've also got to get better on your end with learners getting together and doing group role plays as well. So that process is still in the fold out and trying to work out how that works, but we're trying to get it back to each module taking the 7 weeks, or if it's only a 2-week recording class session, it'll be 6 weeks. Yeah, Daisy?
I was just wondering if it was possible to maybe put that in an email or some form of documentation so we can all refer back to it rather than kind of verbal, because I'm a very visual person. So if it might be easier if it's all kind of written down so that everyone's on the same page.
I don't know what Hayden's doing, but I can do one for you. Yeah.
No, only if that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah. But this is what they're trying to implement, that we have more streamlined structure for the learners, that if we're going to do role plays, you're all going to do the role plays together. And if it needs team support, well, that's there. If it needs a trainer, that'll be there. But trying to get you to finish off, because what we find from the past 6 months is people with things left all over the place. So trying to tighten that process up, and that's our end as well as directing the learners that way as well. And I think Vicky and I will be opening up once a month Sundays for role plays as well, because quite a few people work odd hours. And we're also going to be opening up of a night time for role plays during the week with new trainers coming on board. So we're hoping overall in the next month, that process getting a lot better and more streamlined and more flow and continuing happening there.
That would be
Carlson?
excellent.
Yeah, hey Alan. Is there any chance, I know this is lazy, but the role plays, is there any way to determine the role play you can do on, other than of course reading through it, but from experience, can you go, these role plays you can do with you, these role plays you can do you can be 3 people, and these role plays need to be you +1, you +2.
Yes, so certain role plays have to be done in front of a trainer, and that will be written in red in the task. Everything else you can record yourself.
So where role play, it has, where does that, okay. Do we know what they are, the ones which require an instructor other than, no?
No,
No.
I know COM002 task 3 does. I know that.
COM, yeah.
They say in the description generally, Carlson, they like when you read through the first page, it lets you know like, all right, you're gonna need a couple people for this part. If you like especially click on the side left and when you can just like open all the assessment up and look through it, you can tell whether you need 2 people or just need to ask a friend or something like that, or a flatmate family member. I found that the easiest way, honestly. And because like those assessments, they all like the ones that have like 4 parts, they all work together and kind of makes more sense to do it all together. If you leave all the role plays aside, I find it's way harder because then you like fully forgotten all the work you did on that assessment. You got to like come back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Makes it way harder. So I just like do them all at once, like what they're saying, but not because they said it. Just worked well for me like that, to be honest.
Well, that's what we're finding. You're losing the content and you go back 4 months later. I don't remember what I did there, but now I have to go back and reread. I need to look at my assessments. I need to, so we're trying to streamline that process more. But as soon as you know you've got to do a role play with a trainer, book it in because we're going to have more trainers. So like I said, that availability opening up more across the board. Do we want to go through the process of how to do a role play, record a role play yourself? Yeah, you're good. If you're going to play the parts of 2 or 3 people, today I watched a young girl play 3 parts. She was the case manager and she was the mother and a child. And she did what I told her to do, was basically hold up a bit of paper with the name of the person she was now. So she'd hold up case manager, mother, child, had the names on them, changed her voice a little bit for each one. She just paused while she picked up the paper and then went on. So she actually did that. There's some that you have with an embedded video in it that you can watch first. You can record yourself responding to that embedded video by having the camera on you, and you can split screen on your laptop and do this. You have your Zoom recording or WebEx, whatever you're using on your computer. You have another screen open where you have the embedded video playing. So you press play on the video and let it ask a couple of questions. And then you respond to that as if they're sitting there. So you can play that and then pause it. And then you go, okay, so I hear you're saying that you need some help with blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's look at that. Once you've answered that, press play again on it. And sit there and nod, do your non-verbals, So it's like you're having a conversation, but you're just using the embedded recording. That's another one you can do. The other one is where you have to respond to somebody and you haven't got anybody there. So you can do it by doing this. So welcome. Welcome, Carlson. Thank you for coming in today. That's great. So how are you? Oh, so I hear you've been having a tough week. Oh, okay. And then do non-verbals and then go, so what's been happening for you? And then, oh, okay. So you've been having some relationship problems. I can see that's been difficult for you. So basically you're giving out, you're paraphrasing in a way, but you're reading from your scenario, if you know what I mean, as if that person's asked you that question. That is another way to do it.
You can even do it from just like your phone and just like email yourself the files and put them together in a program. Like, yeah, and just have them playing at the same time.
So role playing yourself responding to somebody as if they're there. We've had people who've played 3 to 4 different parts and they've actually changed hats. Brilliant. 72-year-old woman out in the gold mines, had nobody to work with. had to do a 4-part the PRP, and it was a team of 4 people on the board. She changed her hats. She had caps, she had hoodies, she had everything. All she did was pause, and the next scene she'd come on and she did the change of voice. She had great fun, actually. But there's ways to do that. It takes longer to record, but you have to adapt with where you are. So that is what we call a reasonable adjustment. But as long as those, sorry.
When they say the role, the use of the word, important word is can. So the role play, Mrs. New, and this role can be played by another learner in your class. But when you can interpret that as you can just do it yourself.
Yeah, as long as you play that role completely. So if you're interviewing somebody as a case manager coming in from, say, a crisis situation, say it's for homelessness, and that person's come into your service, you have to make sure that you can play that role completely.
Yeah, because it looks like some of these recordings
and then respond.
Looks like some of these recordings, and I've done a few role plays, by the way, but should be no greater than 10 minutes. So that's probably going to be quite important on how you actually record them, because 10 minutes of video is massive.
Yes, but if you do them on Zoom,
it seems okay.
You don't need to download it to. You always download it to the cloud.
Yeah,
you open up your own Zoom account. You have a link.
Yeah.
The link that you submit, put it on a Word document, because where you've got to upload your video, you've got to upload something into it. Otherwise, it won't let you submit. It'll say you're missing a document or a video, right? So if you can upload a document into that video area with the link for Zoom on it and put it on your assessment, link to video in Word document, so the marker knows where it is. That's all we have to do is copy and paste and go straight to it. You can even do it on YouTube. If you've done a recording on your phone and it's way big, or on your computer, you can actually open up YouTube and you can actually drop a video in, and it'll convert it to a YouTube recording, and then all you have to give us is that YouTube link. But once again, the process, put it on a Word document, drop it into where the uploads are, and put somewhere on the assessment that you've got the link in a Word document. Otherwise, it must be an MP4 recording. And some of those recordings, they say up to 15 minutes. Generally around 10 is enough. But if you go over, it's fine, as long as it can fit. If you're dropping an MP4, as long as it can fit in that size. Otherwise, do a link. It's so much easier.
Anything you record on Zoom casting is straight to MP4 too. Like, it's how it saves. It's just automatic. So subbed on all mine. Like, it's just easy for me. I'm not super tech savvy, so I just find it easy that way.
Yeah, it's pretty good Zoom.
Yeah.
Tony?
Yeah, you had me confused when you were talking about links. I know what you mean, but mine are just on MP4. So you'll have, well, you've seen a couple of them. So now, can I have a go at doing one by myself if I hold a different paper?
Yep. And we'll get to the end
go.
of the session and I'll show you how to do it really easy, Tony, okay?
Well, I'll do that. That will relieve some pressure from you.
Yeah, well, you can do some of those yourself, as long as you've got a Zoom account.
Yes, I do have that.
Well, then I'll show you how to set it up. If I can do it, you can do it, okay?
But this community one for Saturday, we're still going ahead with it.
Yes.
And I'll let Sal know what I'm talking about. Because I'm happy with giving her my plan. She doesn't need to cheat.
Oh, I'll have to check with see if Lynn too can.
Yes.
Yeah. If
But
not, I'll
I
be that
will
other
do
person.
that. I will do that, Helen. I will
Okay.
try to try to get a few done out of my way.
Yeah.
Every time I look at them, I feel like, what the hell?
A role play doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, okay? We actually, when we can take the fear out of it, it's actually a process. That's all it is. It's just a process. But we have to industry measure you ready for, you know, going out there in the end. So
Yeah.
watching that the processes are done correctly. So
Yeah,
if you're going to,
that's why I've been advised. Don't do them with friends, do them with the course. That's part of the course, okay?
if you're going
That's
to
what
do
I've
them,
been advised by people who,
yeah. If you're going to do the other roles, and if that role says that person is distressed, upset, you've got to act that, because we've got to see you be able to de-escalate or support. So it's important that it's not just read off a script. Then the person was sad, then the person got upset, then the person got, that's not going to cut it. If that person's sitting there crying, saying, I'm scared, I'm really worried for myself, that's exactly what you do. And then you change back to the case manager or the counselor that your role is, support worker, and respond, because we're looking for those responses, not for the acting for the person of the client. We're looking for how the case manager, the worker, is responding to that.
I'll have a go at one of them this weekend. Maybe
Easy
Sunday.
thing to do is try and work it on your phone and have a go, you know, just have a play around with it. Yeah, but like I say, reach out if you need to know more information on those. Clausen, does that clear up a little bit more for you?
I just need to rip in.
Yeah, you just got to get in there and do it.
I do.
It works, Daisy. It works. Hey. Yep, it works. All right. Now getting back to workplace health and safety, connected to duty of care. So under Australian common law, everyone has a legal duty to avoid causing harm to others in any situation, especially where their actions can impact on the people around them. So what you were just doing in that last exercise around moving people in a car or visiting people in a home, that's where your actions can impact upon the person you're working with. So your duty of care means that you have a legal obligation to be reasonably careful and not to cause harm to others through carelessness because you haven't been trained properly. So if you haven't been trained properly in working with other people with disabilities or moving them about or doing home visits, doing risk assessments, then you can be liable for if there's any harm. So our colleagues, our organisations and other people as part of our work also have an obligation to duty of care around them in the workforce as well. And if you can look at it as your duty of care as a fundamental right of the client and yourself and the organisation, then you're covering yourself. You're following your processes. We talk about our duty of care in also ensuring that everybody else has their information, their consent. They understand their legal and privacy and confidentiality rules around and rules for choice and rules to be informed. There's also a duty of care that we have around their safety. We have a responsibility. That's what it is. And that responsibility is quite big. Because when you think about it, we're looking after somebody's safety, well-being, supports, referrals, consent, legal understandings. That's our role, to follow those requirements. Now add in workplace health and safety legislation. Because if we're offering relevant health and guidance to somebody, we're also offering safety guidance as well. And some of the employers, and depending on what industry they're in, they have an obligation to ensure that you are instructed in your crisis management around a crisis happening in an organization, especially AOD sector and domestic violence. Because in those situations, you might have people that are either following them, trying to get into the organization to get them, or following to see what they're doing, and then they become a safety issue for the organization. It's the same thing happens with domestic and family violence. So your responsibility, that the organization's responsibility is to ensure your safety. So they also have to look after your psychological health. And to have that is so you're not stressed, but also having supervision, debriefing, and making sure you understand your rights, because you don't want to become injured in that process either. So the workers' rights, as according to the Workplace Health and Safety Act 2011, which they have the addendum now for 2017, you can request changes to avoid hazards, participate in workplace inspections, to not receive discrimination for exercising workplace health and safety rights. It's in the legislation, but it's still not happening properly because people fear reporting things. Will I lose my job? Will other people see me as being difficult? We need to be able to refuse work if it's dangerous. Now, in the community services, some of our work could be deemed dangerous if we're working with people who have complex issues, especially around with mental illness and living with disorders. So there's complexity there that becomes a risk. It's a high danger and safety issue as well. We need to have training in those circumstances. You have a right to that training. Think about for you to feel comfortable in your role, it's about feeling safe and respected. And when your employer can give you a space to work in that feels safe, that will also be safe for who you're working with, your participants. And especially if you're doing one-on-one work. Hamish?
I was interested in like in regards to workers' rights, like say you are taking care of somebody who has complex issues, and part of their complex issues is they do have a tendency to lash out and sometimes hurt you a bit, but like having that carer change again and again and again is not beneficial to that person.
No.
So it's like, where do you stand as a worker? Because I see this maybe happening to myself. So like, if I have someone I'm looking after with, and is having an episode, and then I get, whacked across the head really, really hard, and like, but I don't want to give up on that person. like, where do you stand as a worker? Like, are you going to be removed away from that person? Do I still have the right to be like, no, I'm okay with it. I'll still try and like work with this person. I understand what's going on, and this is part of the process. Like, where do we stand in that?
Well, you have to have boundaries around that, and it has to be reported, and often it will have to go to the police as well.
Oh, okay. But
Right.
what if I like it has to go to the police? Like,
Not necessarily, depend on what the
Yeah. I
organization
don't want to
does.
get someone in trouble just for making a mistake. You know what I mean?
Yes, but it's still about your safety as well as their safety. So if
Yeah.
they had an episode where they were not managed and their medication, just say they weren't managing their medication too well, and they did have a crisis or a psychosis,
Yeah,
the first thing you have to do is call the ambulance for a start.
for sure.
All right, because they're not well.
Absolutely.
And they're in a situation where they're at risk of harm or harming others. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, I do know that if you are hit by someone, I know in one support service, they have to call the police, but they also then report to their manager as well. Daisy, do you have a process where you work when you're working with somebody with disabilities around reporting if they've gone to be harm someone?
So for me, because I work with each independent family, but the one that I'm working with currently, he is nonverbal, but he has severe epilepsy. And so when he has seizures, they can be quite severe. And so there are times where if you're too close to him, he will knock you in the head or he will scratch you or something. But obviously, you can't control that. But at that point, because I'm employed by that specific family, I don't have to refer to any specific report like processes.
Mm.
It's more just about the family is aware of it. If there's a seizure, we let them know kind of thing. But if he harms me, there's not really anything I can do. And because he can't communicate, so some of the times if he's really, really agitated or uncomfortable, he will pinch, like with digging nails in can cause blood, and it's painful. It really is at times, but you can't react because if you react, you're reinforcing behavior of they know they're going to get a reaction out of you. And so sometimes that's what they're looking for, is they're looking for that reaction, they're looking for that attention. But me specifically with this family, there is no report system as to if I need to refer to someone important. It's just unfortunate what this kid's going through. And it's so distressing to see him in situations like this. But at the same time, I guess pinching is a way that he's trying to communicate as to how agitated he is. But it can also be an indicator of if he's going to have multiple seizures or if he's who knows what's going to happen, but you go in one day and you don't know what you're walking into.
But
One day
that does deter you from wanting to work with him more.
exactly.
Exactly. Like that was what I was wondering. Like, because yeah, I mean, just I know that being like working with someone long term is far more beneficial if in especially in that situation, sounding like a non-verbal
Yeah.
person. They need someone they can learn to communicate with. If everyone just runs away because they accidentally get whacked, then what's going to happen with that person's life? That's really
Exactly. And it's
yeah.
for the child as well, the continuity of care, I think, is such a key factor. And because I've been working with this boy for a year and a half now, he is able to kind of, we do have that kind of rapport and that connection where he knows the boundaries. He knows what is and isn't allowed to do. But you've then got to, it's really difficult to find that line because obviously he's nonverbal and he doesn't have the same capacity as someone for his age. But 100% I get you when you say that if you get hurt, then you still want to keep working with them. Because again, if I was in their situation, you wouldn't want someone to be like, oh, if I hit you out of really bad frustration, oh, I'm never going to be able to see you again. You're never going to be able to help me again. It's like, I get what you mean, dude. I get it. It's really hard to deal with. But I don't have a specific report process.
In saying that, Daisy, too, if you were harmed, I would want to think that you go to your GP and
If it was
record
something
it.
sinister, yes.
Yes,
But
it needs to be recorded
yes.
because you have to have evidence that you have looked after yourself after an incident. I would keep a diary of
Yeah.
events because you
Yeah.
don't know what's going to go on in the long run. You might need evidence to support something.
Yeah.
You might need evidence to support to show that this ongoing care with you has changed this young boy's life, all right? But there have been incidences where you've been put at risk. You having a diary of events is crucial for me in my thinking, as well as having a medical checkup. You've got another evidence to say, well, you want to get checked out anyway. If you've been pinched and squeezed and blood broken, you need to get that checked anyway.
Yeah. So if it is something minor, it's quite sad, but everyone who is there to care for him, they do get scratched. It's the inevitable. You can't stop that, because I guess it's really sad that that's become a way that he thinks that he can communicate through that.
Yeah.
But
Now,
100%, absolutely, I understand what you mean. Yes, and if it is something sinister, but even if it is something small as well, get that checked. But there's definitely a line, I guess, as to what is required to. I'd let the mum know or the dad know if there was any sort of injury, 100%. But I would probably only seek medical attention if it was something, I guess, of concern or over the top.
Now, when I was talking about reporting to the police, certain carers who are doing one-on-one work, especially with adults who might have been having a psychosis or an episode, and they become uncontrollable and they start lashing out, and they might hit you, which is what happened to one of our learners 2 weeks ago. Even though she's back working with this person, the police had to be called because of the bruising that she got across the head for a start, the damage. She needed somebody else to quieten this person down.
I did have one of the previous families I was working for was 2 severely disabled twins who were 19 at the time, and the boy had quite big lashes out. And I think I had a very similar situation where we had to call an ambulance or we had to get something sorted. But the situation with that family was very unique. But that's okay. It's moral of the story is you do have to report to them. Unfortunately, whether you do want to or don't want to, it is, I guess, something that you have to do at certain points.
It's part of the legalities, but you then can still say, yes, I still work with them, but now we have more safety measures in place.
Yes.
Yeah. Hamish?
That kind of answers my question. I just wondered, like, you know, in the situation, say they did hurt you a little too bad, or they did, you know, seriously, you know, they broke your nose because they swung back in the hand because they were lashing out. Sorry. Oh my God. Calm down. Like, what are they facing? Like, you know, then they're not in their own right mind. It's not like Joe from down the street hit me, like, and needs to be in trouble with the cops. Like, is it just you're changing their level of care, or what are the effects? Are they going to be in trouble from this? Like,
no, it's not about being in trouble. It's about upping the risk factor, the risk assessments for a start. It's also about, I know this worker was asked, did she want to lay charges? She said no, but I need you to help her calm her down. And if the police couldn't calm her down and talk to her about that those behaviours were not acceptable, and if you don't calm down, we're going to have to call an ambulance and you'll have to go to hospital.
I think that might be a different, I think I might be, because the kids and the people I work with are disabled, they don't have that ability or that right state of mind to be like, oh,
Yeah.
I did that and I understand there's
Yeah.
consequences, but I think there's definitely a difference, but
Yeah.
the same kind of moral, I guess. Yeah.
And it's about that capacity to understand their behaviours and your capacity to manage those behaviours. So you might go, okay, so that incident happened. Now I need to make sure that I'm aware that I know this, and this now. All right. And this is why keeping a diary of events, things that happened, for you to go back and go, yes, I can see we haven't had an escalated event now for quite a few weeks. But when that did happen, this is what I had to do. Just refresh your mind. You might be working with an organisation that will take you through that. For Daisy, it's about relying on training. You could reach out and get more updated information around what you do, but it's still about your safety as well as the safety of others. But organisations will have a different reporting process. So like I said, this other worker had to go through and report the incident, do the risk assessment, look at a risk assessment now for that person she's working with. Now we know the behaviours have become escalated. She chooses whether she goes back and works or not with them. She has that right to choose, which she told me she did. She went back and worked with them, but she also said, if this happens again, this is what I will be doing. And whether the client fully understood or not, it's been verbalized, it's written on paper, it's with an agreement because she's with an organisation that manages her support. So you have that when you're working with an agency. But each one will have their own processes too. It's about you having the training to be able to work, the necessary training to work in any sort of dangerous condition as well. Tony?
I was told, and this is what I believe, reporting is all about your client's well-being. It's not about punishment. It's not about, it's all about his well-being. Like in Daisy's case, if I was her, I would want to know what kind of medical support he's having.
Yeah.
Now, if the family doesn't tell her, then maybe if she reports it, the police will get a doctor involved. He might need drugs, might need something else. If you don't report it, don't kid yourself that you're doing the right thing by your client. You can report it and still keep working with your client, but reporting it means the medical profession, the legal professional, everyone knows about what's going on. And it's not about punishing him or her, it's about helping them. And sometimes, and I know a guy, John Johnson, he is considered one of the best.
John Bones Jones?
Pretty good. Sorry?
John Bones Jones? No, I was sorry, just kidding. It's a very famous UFC fighter, Tony.
No, John Johnson. I know a guy called John Johnson, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Born in Hong Kong, to an Italian family. He's a mixed up kid. But he's a community worker and he works with kids. And he had this kid that didn't like him. And the best thing was for him to walk away. Another lady came in and they get along superb. So sometimes it's not how you feel, always. It should always be not how you feel, but how's your client feeling. And you need the report so you can access.
It's just making sure there's information there for the future so no one else runs into any more of the same situation.
Yes.
Well,
Right.
not only that,
that-
but if you don't update the information, like this kid that John Johnson was working with, they gave him drugs since this lady has taken over. She loves the kid, but she made the point of telling the family, no, this is not good. We're going to go to the police. We're going to go to the doctors. No one's going to hurt your kid. And the kid's on drugs and he's happy. They give him some kind of drug. He's happy and she's happy and the family is happy. When John Johnson was there, he just, because he is good at his job, I will give him that. But in this case, he was hopeless because he didn't want to say, I need help. I need to go and report this.
I think with all of these incidences, the thing to remember as a worker in the industry, you have to uphold the legislation and follow it and follow the rules. Whether you don't want to report or it depending on what your work situation is, as you can see, there's many different scenarios that you can work in. But there's still a way that you can do your own reporting. Like I said, do your own reporting into a book as well. But when you're working with an organization as a support worker out there, you've got legislation to follow. End of story. It's your job to uphold it. You have a responsibility for your own health and safety, for the other person's health and safety, as well as to comply with policies and procedures. That's the rules.
And you have a duty of care.
Yes, Kylie. Yes. And that duty of care covers everything. That's like if you had an umbrella, that's what the duty of care is. Everything else is underneath that umbrella and it's protecting everything. But that duty of care covers mental health, physical, environmental, all those safety issues, legislations, rules of practice. It's huge. And that's why we keep going over it and over it in this course for you to understand that this is your framework that you will work by. This is your guide. This is you've got the groundwork and you've got a framework that you follow. So you've got the groundwork and over the top of everything is your duty of care. But you've got your groundwork of following legislations and policies and procedures, your training. Then you're going to have your framework builds up with your person-centered practice, unconditional positive regard, motivated interviewing, all these practices that guide how you work, all under the umbrella. So good point there, Kylie. So we can contribute to workplace health and safety, which we've actually talked about tonight about, and it can be difficult to report. But also if you're in a position of management, your job, if you're managing a team in the future, it's about making sure that you participate, get the training yourself, and you share that information and do the suitable training for your employees as well. So we'll just go past that one. So codes of practice. There are regulations with Safe Work Australia and duties under WHS laws. And I'm just going to put this link in the chat for you, which will help with your assessments as well. And I'll put that link in the clip here for our learners at home. Now that is a good website to have a look at, Safe Work Australia, around our regulations and duties under workplace health and safety law. So we have duties of care, but there's also duties under the workplace health and safety laws as well. And once again, there's penalties for not complying if something happens. So the Workplace Health and Safety Act in Australia has a lot of requirements around policies, but to fulfill that act, all businesses need to adhere to the policies, the development of policies as well. So if their business changes, if their service changes, how are they adapting their policies to meet those changes as well? That's their responsibility as well. So let's have a look quickly at emergency procedures before we go for another break. So what is the classification of an emergency for a start? And if you can think of it being as that threat of harm and where anything to do with your environment becomes unsafe. And an emergency is something of a crisis situation that's so unexpected. So that could be violent behavior, a fire, threats. And each organization you work with has procedures. And each organization has your mandatory. This is your duty of care here coming in again, mandatory reporting. And they'll have a crisis drill of what processes for you to follow. Who do you report to? Do you clear an area first? Do you get everybody out? If somebody came into an organization making threats, can you get everybody else out of the building and leave them in? It's safer to get everybody out and away from there. You're looking for exits. It will all depend on the type of work you're doing and the area that you're working in, but you will be given procedures on what to follow in most workplaces. When they're doing crisis and emergency drills, make sure you know where your exits are. But when it's a crisis management of a situation, who are you reporting to? What are your steps? And often they'll have steps of who you're reporting to, when you're calling the police. Are you advising and clearing the area off and trying to close off an area whilst you've got everybody else out, and the person who might have a weapon be kept into a room and shut the door? You've got everybody else out. There'll be different crisis management to control and to reduce the risk of harm to others in a hazardous environment. All right, 10 past 8. Let's go. We'll be back at 20 past 8. And we have been talking about individual support tonight, so good timing to have a look at some of these issues for workplace health and safety and maintaining safety in those areas. So with residential, workplace health and safety focuses on the practices of the worker and the residents that you're going into. And it's about avoiding injury and about understanding your training for manual handling and supporting residents' mobility. So it's crucial for you to have that training before you're put into this environment. You have to be able to prevent falls. You might be helping with administration medications. You might be managing behaviors. And like we've been talking about, those aggressive behaviors that can't be managed by the participant. And also we're looking at your mental health and safety here too. So this is why it's crucial to do the reporting or checking back in, making sure you have the training. Community-based workplace health and safety comes into play when we're doing recreational or in social environments that we might be working with groups of people in. We might be there to ensure their safety whilst they're participating in activities. But we need to be able to manage, once again, behaviours, keep people safe. In the home, those services to your participant in their own home can be all different types of homes. So like we were saying, that the access to exits and to understanding complex needs of our clients, how we support them in those environments, is all about the risk assessment as well before we even get there. And you could be doing a risk assessment as you're entering, because things might look different as well. So your eyes open all the time, checking, scanning. So for your rights, you have to meet your service provider's criteria for safety. And your right is to have a safe environment. So you're partly responsible for that safety and to act sensibly in that to protect your own health and well-being as well. So other considerations here are if you're working alone and if the home that you've gone to visit in is not set up to support the participant correctly, and that could create a hazard in you trying to do your duties for that person. So when you're working alone and in isolation from colleagues or supervisors, it's very important that you do have that risk assessment before going in. If you're feeling that things are unsafe, you need to get that reported straight away, because it'll impact your work and you won't be able to do your work if that area is unsafe for you and the participant. Usually when you're hired by an organization, these processes are in place, especially if they're high needs participants. You often work in pairs, but it is known to be sending people out singly as well. Know your rights. If you don't feel safe in that you get to speak up as well. Don't forget fire safety here. Equipment that's needed for fire safety. So all places that you visit must have fire extinguishers. Not enough people have them in their homes. We might have fire alarms. We don't have fire extinguishers, although they make them mandatory in little camper vans and things like that, mobile homes. But having access to them to bigger homes and bigger organizations will have access to them, but sometimes they're not that visible too. We should have them in the kitchen, especially with cooking, the oils and fats that can be in kitchens. Once again, when you're working with people who are high and complex needs and have challenging behaviors, often when they're changing workers too, that when people become unfamiliar, like Daisy was saying, that continuity of support makes them feel more secure and they know what's going to happen and where they stand. When the workers keep changing all the time, very confusing, hard to build trust for them, hard to feel safe. So their reactions are to lash out. Also too, you have to be, if you're stepping in for somebody and you don't know that participant's environment that you're going into, Make sure you're doing a scan of that before you're entering, because you're going into a strange environment. How do I get out? Where do I, what are safety or what are trip hazards? And just remember, you could be a distance away from your supervisor. So having access, phone, especially, you often can wear an emergency button as well. But it's also about, if you're helping a participant in their home, are you helping to maneuver then? Are you using your infectious disease control as well? Are you using gloves? Are you washing appropriately? Have you been vaccinated? All these things are important. So when a person conducts a business, as we call them, a PCBU, they're conducting a business or an undertaking of a process here. They have the duty of care to ensure the health and safety of their workers, to make sure they're trained, make sure they have the right equipment. You could be in an aged care facility, you could be doing one-on-ones, but even with influenza out there and RSV, wearing a mask for your safety going into people's homes or working one-on-one can be crucial. That's certainly, it's not by law now that happens. That's going to be up to your choice that you need to do that or not. If you've got sniffles, you would be wise to wear a mask. Otherwise, you don't go and share those germs. So that's our responsibility. All right. So we have to ensure our participants' health as well, but we don't know what their health's like. So can we be prepared better too when we go out and work with people? It's the same as transporting in the car. I know one agency that always insists that their workers wear masks in the car because they're in an enclosed environment. So just think about these things. It's about your safety. You have to be acting upon these things yourself. It is logic, it is sense, it is your training. If you activate these, often, I think even my grandson said, why do we need to wear a mask when we're sitting in this doctor's surgery? Isn't this where sick people get better? And I said to him, darling, this is where sick people come. So we're wearing a mask so we don't get everything else on top of what we're here for starters. And he just looked at me and he goes, oh, that makes sense. You don't want to have complex health issues. He's been listening to his grandmother, of course. He's 7. But he's got weak lungs. So he's got an immunodeficiency. So anything that's going around, we're hypervigilant around, but trying to relax that when you're going to shopping centers and things like that, as long as they're not all closed in, but trying to even get other people to activate these things in small enclosed areas. A friend of mine does support work. She is never ending picking up a cold or a rash. And I'm saying, are you wearing gloves? Are you wearing a mask? Oh, no, I don't want to have to bother doing those things. And I said, okay, so now you're still getting sick. I can't see you because I have low immunity. So you need to let me know whenever you're sick. And she's, oh, yeah, I never thought about passing that around. And I'm like, you've got a duty of care. You know, one lapse in your duty of care can be, we don't want to put our participants at risk. Okay. So think about those things if we need to. We need to take action sometimes as workers. Might make us stand out and look different, but our safety is just as important as our participants' safety. Please remember that. Policies and procedures are huge. When you don't follow them and a big incident happens and somebody might make a complaint about that, if you have it documented that you've done your risk assessment, you've done an assessment of what the scenario happened and done a report, spoken to a supervisor, those things can be checked. They're hard copies of evidence. When you have no evidence against a complaint, you've got no comeback except your own voice. And if that person has a complaint and has something to say, well, you know, you never followed the procedures, or they have some reason to be able to identify something you didn't do, you need to be able to have it documented. Whenever you're out with someone, you have a list of documentation of what you have done. And that safeguards you. Preparation before you go. Reading up on the person that you're going to be supporting at the time, making sure you've got their basic case notes either on your phone or in a book that you carry, and then doing a report straight after your service, whether it was a great outcome or there was an incident. It's still fixing up doing your case notes, and if you have to report something, you do a reporting straight away. Paper trail. Follow the procedures, because complaints do happen. Complaints happen about many different things. But when you can speak to the complaint, yes, we followed this procedure here. We did this here. That person did that. That person also adhered to the organisational policies of risk assessment, signing in and out. All those things matter. All those things matter, because it matters to you, it matters to the participant, and it matters to the organisation. But I'm saying it for you. It matters to you. We're all future colleagues. We've got to be looking out for each other. And for you to be able to do your work effectively, it's making sure you're following policies and procedures, but hearing it from other people who've been in the industry. Hamish is about to get into the industry. Daisy's in the industry. I've been in the industry. Tony's had some experience. We've had listening to Abby's experience in dental work, Carlson's experience. Everybody's got experience in some way. Take note from those experiences and learn from them, because we're all learning in this together. Any questions? We're going to finish up early tonight. Are there any questions? We're going to unpack, gosh, listen to me, 8:30 at night, and language is shocking. We are going to unpack the assessments next week. And there's quite a few assessments for this workplace health and safety. Please go in and unpack them and have a look at them. See what you might need other people with. Have questions to ask next week when we unpack the tasks. We'll spend quite a bit of time on these next week. And I don't know if there's role plays in them. I think there is. So let's get to thinking about how we do those and organising those straight up. So we're not going to, so we start our new practice. This is our first night. Let's get into the practice. Week 1, task 1. Week 2, task 2. If you've got those 2 out of the way, we can then do the next ones after that. Hamish?
Sorry, just one last thing. Say I have a few things behind. Do you still want things in the chronological order, like you were saying before, like done as they were until caught up kind of thing? Because, you know, I fell behind because of some family stuff and
Yeah. Look,
yeah,
I think even in, so you're working in the now, I'm going to suggest, going against what we talked about, go back and, you know, you can do that. But whilst this is fresh in your mind, let's work with workplace health and safety.
okay, yeah, I'll do that first and then go back and then do it in
when
order.
you've got time.
Yeah, no, I got lots of time.
And then go back and finish one completely. All right. But the trick is here, whenever any of you are going back and catching up on something and it has a role play that needs an assessor, or you need somebody else and you don't have it,
Yeah.
get in and make a Calendly appointment so a trainer can do it with you.
Okay.
All right. So get in early. If you know that's going to be in a week's time, I'm going to be ready. Get online and book it in.